Well, I'm Julie Taymor, and I'm a filmmaker and I'm a theater director and basically a storyteller. And I saw this film, Porcelain War, the other night and was taken by it on many, many, many levels. So I'm very honored to be here today with Slava and Brendan. I met Slava the other night because we were blessed to have him there to answer questions and to be able to bring us into the process. But now I'm very curious to be actually beginning with Brendan, the other director who apparently was not in Ukraine shooting this. So how did this come to be? What was the initiation of this project?
The spark happened long before Russia invaded Ukraine. Thank you first, though, just for speaking with us. This is a pleasure. I was connected to this project because one of our producers, Aniela Sidorska, grew up under Russian oppression in communist Poland, and she became a political refugee when her family escaped to the United States. And about 8 years ago, she discovered Anya and Slava's work, these tiny porcelain figurines, and she was so moved by them because they reminded her of her home as a child. And she shared them with me, and I was blown away. I mean, I couldn't believe that something that was just a couple inches tall could have this enormous story of someone's life. And the four of us, actually, as two couples, Aniela and I, husband and wife, Anya and Slava as well, we began a collaboration on an animation project at the very, very early stage. But before we could get going, Russia invaded Ukraine. And I called up Slava to ask, if he was okay when they were leaving. And he told me, we're going to stay and we're going to keep making our art during the night. And I said, why? What are you doing during the day? And he told me for the first time, and I mean, Julia had absolutely no idea. He said, I'm in the Ukrainian Special Forces and I'm teaching civilians, peaceful people, my friends, to fight back. And I thought this was so remarkable. But the notion that he was creating art, that it's the last thing you think somebody's going to do in a war zone. I thought this is a true act of defiance that the world deserves to see is possible. So we wanted to get a camera to him, but there was no reliable way to ship anything. And yet we discovered there was this network of volunteers, and it was a makeup artist in New Jersey who was stockpiling medical supplies in her apartment. I mean, you couldn't walk. There would be 50 or 60 duffel bags of med kits. And she said, I'm going to bring these through Poland. I'm going to drive them into Ukraine. I'll carry the camera for you. And so I shipped Slava my camera, and he received it, but everything was against us. We had this enormous problem. We were 6,000 miles apart. We were separated by a language barrier. We could only communicate on Zoom with an interpreter. We didn't speak a word of the same language. And we had the largest conflict in Europe since World War II between us. So we figured out we must come up with a way to collaborate. There has to be a way to do it. So we worked every day over Zoom to create an impromptu film school, a way where they could take their instincts as storytellers, because they were master visual storytellers already for decades, and just translate them into cinema. And so what they learned, what they decided to bravely capture, to risk their lives to record, became Porcelain War, which you saw.
Mhm. So I have so many questions. Let me see. For Slava, how did you get into the forces? I mean, who invited you? What was the moment that you said, I have to go and pick up a rifle and learn how to use it?
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you for your kindness to have us here. It's really weird story because it's something about knowledge and how our knowledge, how our sense of our responsibility in the face of history is changing our life. After annexion of Crimea, because annexion of Crimea was completely unpunished, it was clear for us kind of war is ahead. But anyway, I'm just artist. I never thought in army before and never was interested in firearm or all this kind of activity. I love all our life. Annie and me, we love hiking and nature and dogs. I don't know.
Clearly, Frodo,
But
the star.
yes, Frodo is important. But when Maidan, our revolution, broke out, we find many new connections to really amazing people, most intelligent and kind people, like cream of Ukrainians. And one of these my new friends, it was not so new now because it's more than 10 years ago. He is a professor of history in our state university, and his subject, his major, is modern Russian war. And this guy completely understood, since the annexion of Crimea, what kind of war will come to us. And he established our military preparation. We were connected to government, but we make much more. We spend a lot of time on shooting range. We buy our own rifles to prepare ourselves. And when American Green Berets helped Ukrainian armored force to establish Ukrainian Special Force, they select us to be invited in our special force. That is why our guys, sometimes girls, sometimes old and not so healthy people, is in our special force right now. But many of our friends already released because the age, because they are already 60 and cannot serve.
But they can protect themselves now a little better. Yeah.
Yes, much better. So we get our preparation, and I had this already had this expertise, especially about shooting, because I was concentrated on focused on a weapon because I understood I'm already not so young and I cannot investigate any direction of these military skills. And because I can teach people, because uh, I I taught students in our art college about history and theory of art. I have this experience and almost successful in this kind of activity when big war was broke out and so many completely unprepared people came to our army without any experience, and all they get these AK rifles, and it was horrible situation. I I understood it will be a huge amount of accidents because firearm is dangerous, especially for people who are unprepared, and people who surround who are around these unprepared people. And I start to talk all these people, the first about defense, the first about to secure themselves from this weapon.
I once directed a show called Grounded Theater on a drone officer, a woman who had fought in F-16s and military planes and now was relegated to being a drone pilot and was in Las Vegas, where they are dropping drones, bombs on people in the Middle East. It's a play, it's not a documentary. But the main thrust of this is how she had to go home and take care of her husband and her daughter, and the split between, and she cannot talk about what she does, nor does she want to, because it is violent and because people are killed. And she is not connected to those people. There's something very different being active, physically active in the war, what you and your unit was doing. You're on the ground, you're physically, your adrenaline, as opposed to sitting there with a computer and mapping where you're going and watching it from, countries half a world away. So I suppose you say, they don't say PTSD anymore, but what I'm very interested in finding out from you is, as everybody would want to know, you're an artist by night, you're a soldier by day. How do you make that split? I think one of the most beautiful, touching moments is we know that you go mushroom hunting. That's part of your love for food and also pastime with your dog and such. And then when you go and have to lift up the moss and not find a mushroom, but to find a landmine, and that shift of doing what you do, but it has it's not about joy and life and juicy tastes. It's about death and stopping it. So tell us about that segue between daytime and nighttime and art.
It's really a surrealistic experience to have the war right outside my door. But all these people who came to our army as volunteers, they are still the same peaceful people like before the war. And they all trying to keep the state of mind what they have before the war. And it's so important for us, any available kind of decompression. And as Brendan say, it's amazing. As for me, it's amazing point. Opposite the war is not peace. Opposite war is creativity, is creation. And my friends, I was servant in the Ukrainian army at the time, and I was able to work on porcelain war only because my unit completely supported us, and they fought instead of me and released me for my artistic activity. But not only, they used these body cameras, they adjust the drones, even battle drones, they adjust to take the best kind of footage. And of course, they were so happy with additional drone, Brendan said to us, to make beauty between the battle, in the middle of this destruction. It was so important, the first, to just for decompression, just to survive and keep humanity in this situation. And also they understood what kind of resistance it is, because our culture is main target of this aggression.
Yeah.
And our culture is source of our resilience, and our culture is a way of our resistance, because they also felt this kind of responsibility. And it's spectacular to close the door and try to leave the war outside the door, but even more spectacular what my friends did on front line when they were in shelter underground in bunker, and Brendan helped them. Brendan can explain how he, through satellite internet, explain how to adjust cameras and what they said, how happy they were.
Yeah, there was a series of really interesting discoveries that led to this. So I have to start slightly earlier in the process. When I was trying to figure out how Slava and I could begin to collaborate, we will be waiting for the interpreter to translate. I mean, you hear his English has become amazing, but this is only in the last 10 months.
I don't understand how you speak that well.
It's incredible. I believe, Julie, that he has wired his mind for abstract communication using other forms, sculpture, painting. And so language is permeating, I think, his whole consciousness, and so he's wired for it. But what happened is this, and speaking deeply of language, when we were waiting for the interpreter, we would become so frustrated and, to be really frank, really bored. It's such a to have what could be a
Yeah, I know.
45-minute conversation be like 2.5 hours is very challenging. So we would, start to sketch these little drawings, and they would become storyboards, and those would become blocking diagrams and ideas for shots and scenes. And we started to look at paintings that we loved and photographs and pieces of cinema. And all of a sudden, we realized we're completely fluent in the universal language of visual art. And we can use this not only as a platform for the story, for the film, but as a method for meaningful collaboration as co-directors. And so we had a completely seamless way to communicate. And so when we began to send more cameras, and eventually we sent 15 cameras, many body cams, drones, not just these kind of compact cinema cameras, Slava's unit would go down in the middle of their mission. They would go down into a bunker. They would hook up to satellite internet, and we would sit like this. They would be in full fatigues with a little notepad, and we would look at these drawings, and we would show these diagrams, and they would say, okay, we know how to pilot a drone, but we need to understand the camera. But it wasn't just technical. They wanted to know what to film, why, how would it feel? We would talk about tracking shots and wide shots and sunset. And they were so dedicated to this. And I asked them, what are your feelings around it? They said, if we can capture what we go through when we wake up in the morning and share it with someone, maybe someone else won't have to be here in the future. And so it was this act of not just journalistic bravery to show their faces and to capture this in the middle of the mission, but this incredible source of creativity, of resilience. And they shared something else with me, which was so moving and surprising and mind-blowing. When they returned from their combat, and this is a great resources they go for a psychological decompression. There's workshops and resources for them. It took several days of this, but they said when we shared with them a rough cut of the film, that watching what they captured was a stronger decompression and release than anything they had received before. And this was coming full circle.
I think that was another thing that struck us. Well, the music we should talk about, because that's insanely brilliant and wonderful. But you did talk about it at the screening. But is the balance between the beauty and the horror? Before I saw the film, the only imagery I see of Ukraine on American television is the destruction. And you help to remind us not only of the sensitivity and intelligence and fun and love of the people who make the art, but also the nature, just the gorgeous, what is that? The kind of
Dandelion, the dandelion.
the dandelion coming down, and that within all of this, you have to seek out the beauty. I did a film called Frida, and that's one of the things that I know about Frida is that she always found the beauty in the horror. My work is always a balance between the sacred and the profane. And I think great art, Guernica, is a reminder. People do the most beautiful, I heard the most incredible cellist do a solo piece by an Italian composer, and I'm sorry I can't remember his name, but we said, what's that piece? After we heard it, just stunning 2 nights ago. And he said it was in honor of the Armenian genocide. That totally shifted what I thought, but clearly this man had some connection in some way, and that's what gave him inspiration. We know, you look at the crucifixion, you look at great art everywhere, it is often the horror of what man, and I will say man, does to humankind for the most part. So I think you beautifully captured that balance. I think that you successfully were able to have personality on film. This is the critical thing. We liked you and Anya and the painter who was the other camera. I don't know.
Andrei.
We like the personalities, it was a very subjective documentary, and that I think really makes it special and unusual. Did you have a lot of people in Ukraine seen it yet, or can they?
We have three screenings on different festivals in Ukraine, and I hope we'll have distribution in Ukraine pretty soon.
You should, yeah. Well, congratulations about the DGA, by the way.
Thank you so much.
That's, didn't the
Thank
two
you
of
so
you get
much.
it? Yeah.
Unbelievable honor.
Moment. We were losing it. We were losing it. And Ang Lee followed us on stage, and he was talking about pushing the boundaries of cinema to something new. And I relate to this concept of really mixing things together that wouldn't otherwise seem like, why would you do something like that? And his notion of continued education, he was like, I can't wait to keep learning. And I'm like, look at your body of work. That's exactly why it's so strong. And I love this. We were glowing. Anyways, it was
Well,
very
you got it, but this thing, I mean, you sit there the whole time watching it and want people in Russia to see it. I mean, that's the sad part. You really do. I think the saddest moment, honestly, is when you say that these Russian soldiers are, what is it, fodder, that they're just thrown out there as bait. So you kill them so they know where you are. That's just, that's why I know it's an anti-Russian film, and people can have those back and forth, but it's not really. It's just an anti-war film. And we've made anti-war drama, concerts, symphonies, movies, books for the whole history of mankind. And I think this should really get to wherever it can get.
This genocide never alone. Genocide anyway take both sides of any genocide war. Genocide destroying mind of aggressor, and also now we are having something horrible. Russia lose such a many people, and especially its very dark side of this conflict, very dark side. They lose few population. Maybe,
They lose
native
population. They use many. They lose a huge population.
No. I mean something else. These native people in Siberia, these small populations, they are completely unsecured in Russia. They have not reservation, any rules. And now Russia especially put in these troops people from this population. And already one of this population already completely disappeared because this war.
Unbelievable.
Yes, Russia is in fight against not Ukraine only. It's few genocide in same time. That is why it's so horrible, and we are really sensitive for these matters because maybe you remember this episode in our movie when this empty grave ready for human's body. Yes, when my friends watch this episode, they start to make jokes and try to choose for themselves new grave. Oh, it's for me. I like this one on the middle, and this is, maybe this is for you because you are fat and this grave is big. It's jokes, but it is because people during the war, people every day can have this knowledge. Maybe it's their last day of their existence, and because this, they're really seriously look around and really attentively and really sensitive for all this source of violence, of genocide, of destruction, of dangerous ideas.
I think something that we didn't talk about very much is the light part of the film, which is the animation and Anya's work and your work, the beauty of the porcelain. Just that is it's obviously a great metaphor, but it happened before the war. I mean, you were making this kind of art. And I think that for most people seeing it will be a real surprise. Like they won't know what is the importance of these little porcelain things, these little objects to a war. But in reality, you've made them absolutely equal. And that has to switch people's heads, because this thing that you make together in love and beauty and talent and all that gives people laughter, joy, just wonder, is the savior. It's actually what you said, is the creative savior of people. And so song, music, that's often a part of war. But you were managing to do something very different in this film. I think the animation on the objects, talk about that, because I love that the objects are in the real environment. That's what was really special about them, that choice of not taking them and making it a separate thing. But there it is. It's right there, so that we know your imagination didn't get shut down during the war. It actually flourished in a way.
Yes.
Point of
Yeah.
view.
Everything that you're saying is resonant. I'll begin with a little context, and Slava can continue. But when you talk about this notion that we used animation in the film, often when people say we want to have animation in any movie, narrative, documentary, you're imposing something. This was coming completely organically. It was a blossoming out of what they're doing already. And it came from almost a disagreement in a sense. Slava was saying we've never used time before in our work because now they're filming, they're working in cinema. I said, Slava, in Anya's paintings, in your work, you have seasons and movement, emotions, and characters are aging and living. You have your own cinema. It is frozen in the glaze, and through animation, we're just going to melt it. But when we make this animation, we cannot leave Ukraine. We were all really thinking, meditating on this, because they cannot leave. We can't go into another Disney World, something like this, of 2D animation, and everybody just sit back. You have to be within the rubble. You have to be within the forest, a forest that Slava cleared the landmines out of this because Andrei loved this tree and he wants to film his dream of the future coming back together with his girls right through this vista. So Slava removed the landmines from there. We're going to be there, and we're not going to make something artificial. We're going to work as artists. And Slava could talk about this collaboration, this very deep collaboration we had to the animation.
It was an argument. Was there an argument?
No, we have a playful banter like this. We were just saying, Slava's like, this is new. It's like that. And I'm like, Slav, no, you're incorrect. It's like this. He's like, maybe we're using time forever. And I'm like, of course you're using time. So we discovered we're like two brothers. Our tastes are super aligned, Julie. So like the way that we approach something aesthetically, tonally, it's really synchronized.
Where was the actual literal animation done? In a computer? I mean, how did you make that kind of animation?
I'll continue a little bit. So this was really, really unique. It was really unique. So from conversations that Slava and Anya had and Andrei about their life, about their past, they were arriving at these places we needed to take the story where we could not bring the camera, right? They were going into Crimea. They're going into the dreams of their future. So it became this time machine and somewhere where we could take the camera. And we worked with a group of animators in Poland, a collective called Blue Studios, and they animated by hand. And what they did is they listened to these voice recordings. We worked together on storyboards, on these, the scripts for these things were the figurines that Anya painted themselves. That was the stage. And then they studied her work. Slava sent them 20 years of photographs of Anya's style so that the wing of a butterfly would be the right shape. And they created 7,000 hand-drawn frames that we mapped onto the figurines. But it wasn't something that would create an artifice. What we did, and we worked very hard to do this, is I worked with Slava and Andrei to teach them how to film the sky, the log, the rubble in such a way that when in Poland they made a little circle and it made a bump, it would reflect the very color of the leaves over the Pegasus or the very tone of the brick in the rubble. And that way it would become glaze. The lines that we made in one country would then populate the very surface of the figurine with something that felt like glass. And that was the only way to make sure it was just a conduit. The method of animation was a way for story to flow and not have anything artificial.
Yeah, well, it's pretty special. It's really beautiful and allows you to appreciate Anya's work closely. You know what I mean? And I think one of the other most extraordinary moments is the drone insect or whatever it is dragonfly. That's a great thing because it's horrible. I mean, seriously, you are dropping a drone with a comedic puppet, flying puppet. But yeah, we are, because there's nothing more absurd than war. Nothing more absurd that human beings bother to do this to each other, that they deign and bother. But I wondered about that moment when you brought that visual to the people who are going to literally be dropping a drone. Those drones are bombs. They kill people, or were they just intended to disrupt the moment, the land?
It's again very, very complicated connection of impressions. This painted drone, for example, he painted because my commander just asked Anya to paint it in bright color.
Right.
Easy to find in grass if battery is empty and these drones fell down, not returned to our position completely. But Anya cannot just paint this drone. we tried to put in our movie as many culture and art as we can, but it's because we tried to put this art and culture in our everyday activity, even in activity on front line. It's also kind of art, all this relationship and the shelling, all this deep collaboration inside unit and battle, and maybe this deep kind of collaboration help us bring to this movie more humanity, even from front line. And this connection, it's very. I cannot explain even what is most important part of this. We have historical precedent, historical footage when this painted drone burned Russian tank. Probably it was first time in history when huge dangerous tank was burned by civilian drone for photography,
Right.
with amazing Hasselblad camera on it.
And also it's painted like a dragonfly.
I think if we abstract it in a sense, it's that nothing can dim the artistic spirit. Anya can't just do something utilitarian. She's always looking for a way to honor nature or creativity. Whatever then that comes where the drone goes from there, that's something else. But Anya's spirit is like that light cannot go out.
No, I think we should probably end this, but I think your last line about the porcelain, what is the line about it can't break? I mean, that there's something, what is the beautiful last line in the film? It's very important. I mean, I feel it, but I can't remember what it was about.
It's really important metaphor for us. We're working, it's our favorite material for our art because it looks so fragile, but it's completely undestroyable. It's endless. It's for thousands of years, and you cannot burn this porcelain or and it's metaphor not it's not about Ukraine and Ukrainians only. It's metaphor of human spirit and human culture, for example. It's
Yes.
so fragile, it's so easy to damage personal mind, to damage culture, to kill part of population, or even all people by genocide. But culture is endless and undestroyable. But
Oh,
we can dig art of ancient people, and this connection between our soul is bring they back to life.
mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I think it's an extraordinary film, and I want to thank you for inviting me to talk with you about it. And I really hope everybody gets to see it. You have to get it out there. You know, you've got a distributor. He should get it. He should be able to get a streamer and get it out to people. I mean, it's hard to get anybody to go to movie theaters. I did. My last film was The Glorious, and it never got out because of COVID. So made a big movie, never seen. Not really. People didn't really even know it was on with big movie stars. So I've been through that very difficult experience. But I think you're getting the appreciation everywhere. And good luck on the Academy stuff next week. Okay.
Thank you kindly, Julie. It's our honor to be able to speak with you, and thank you for your curiosity and sharing your feelings and insights. This is beautiful.
Yeah, and Brendan, I'd love to know more about what you do. You know, what are your other films? And Slava, you know how to get in touch with me now. So let's stay in touch because I
We would
really
love that so much.
big admirer.
Julia, thank you so much. It's
All right,
really,
well,
it
likewise
means a lot for
from
me.
us.
Okay.
Oh, beautiful. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye.
now.